Senator Pocock now.
Thank you,
Senator Pocock.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for your time this afternoon now. I've got some questions about Australia's response to the global Sumud Flotilla, and was interested what specific allegations of mistreatment of the 11 Australian citizens on board the government has received or become aware of.
Can we just get officials the right people today, David? Thank you. Up to Senator Pocock. Could I start with some general comments first, Senator, if that's all right? Before we go to officials, I want to express this government works to stand up for Australians at home and overseas, that we advocate for the interests and well-being of Australians overseas, and we work to step in to help those in need. Obviously, consular teams are there in times of grief, crisis and tragedy. In relation to these issues, along with other countries, Australia has directly raised our concerns with Israeli authorities about the treatment of detainees and refusal to provide consular access in line with international obligations. We've called in the Israeli ambassador to reiterate our demand for answers. We were deeply alarmed by reports of mistreatment while Australians were in detention. Our ambassador in Israel has made clear to Israel our expectations that an urgent investigation is conducted into these allegations. I have condemned the actions of Israeli Minister Ben-Gvir. I think his actions were unconscionable. We have already sanctioned Minister Gvir previously, and the degrading treatment by Israeli authorities shown in publicly available footage is also condemned. I have raised this matter directly with my Israeli counterpart. Officials have made high-level representations to Israel about the allegations on multiple occasions and conveyed our expectation, Australia's expectation, that these allegations be urgently investigated. And our ambassador in Israel continues to seek updates on any investigation by Israeli authorities. Now, your question was directly on the issue of...
What specific allegations of mistreatment have been raised by these Australians?
Senator, it's Fiona Webster, Acting Deputy Secretary, International Security, Legal and Consular Group. So I just wanted to reiterate, first of all, the Foreign Minister's statement. The safety and security of Australians overseas is our highest priority. DFAT officials were in regular contact with the participants in the flotilla over 190 times by last count over the course of April and May to provide updates and to provide support to them. We've made more than 20 representations with Israeli authorities, either in Tel Aviv or Canberra, either to facilitate the provision of consular support or to convey our concerns about their treatment. Those alleged instances of mistreatment, as publicly reported, were violence against members of the group and also sexual assault. Mm-hmm. As the Minister has said, we take these allegations extremely seriously.
Mm. And so does the government consider an Israeli internal investigation to be sufficient where Israeli officials are alleged to have mistreated Australian citizens like this? There's some very serious allegations. Are we happy just for an internal investigation by Israel?
We're not happy about any of this, Senator.
Sorry?
We're not happy about any of this.
But are you happy that
I'm not happy about any of this.
But are you happy that it's just an internal investigation, or are you pushing for more than that?
Yeah, we would want the most thorough investigation possible. Work on,
What does that look like?
Well, but we're not the ones who are able to determine what that investigation is, so we should keep making representations for full and thorough investigations. Of course, our preference would always be for an independent investigation. Well, always.
And so,
generally.
Are you pushing publicly for an independent investigation?
I've just said that publicly.
Okay. Has that been raised with...
Well, I've just said also in my opening statement that we have made these representations at my level and also at officials' level.
So, Minister, you've asked Israel via diplomatic channels for an independent investigation?
I have directly raised these issues with my counterpart, and representations have been made as I have described.
Sure. But have you asked them for an independent investigation?
I think the phrase we used...
I think in relation to the representations we've made, we've asked for an urgent investigation, and we would, of course, want that to be thorough and in line with international norms and expectations. We've made that extremely clear on several occasions.
But an urgent and thorough investigation by Israel into allegations against Israel is very different to an independent investigation. So I'm interested if has the Australian government asked them to undertake an independent investigation?
I think the phrase I used was swift and transparent. Of course, we would prefer, and I'm sure, well, my assumption is that the Australians concerned would prefer an independent investigation. Given it, I think the first point is to get a transparent investigation.
Sure.
We need to keep advocating for that, and I understand other countries are putting a similar position to the Israelis.
But Minister, surely one of the concerns for Australians would be that they've heard you say at Senate estimates that we would like an independent investigation, but the government hasn't even asked the Israeli government to consider an independent investigation.
Senator, we don't we are pressing for a swift and transparent investigation. That I would like to see that, I think, and so would other countries. Of course, you would prefer in these circumstances to have an independent one, but I would rather have an investigation that is transparent than no investigation. And so we need to keep pressing for that. So I'm not trying to... This is a question of... this is not a political point, Mr. Senator Pocock. We all would prefer that, but what we have to also try and press Israel for is an investigation that is transparent, and we will do that.
But Minister, if we would all prefer that, why haven't we asked Israel for an independent investigation? Well, you don't get what you don't ask for.
Well, I've answered the question. I mean, the first thing to do is to try and keep diplomatic pressure on for something to occur both swiftly and transparently. And that's something I think we have to work with other countries to try and achieve.
Sure. But Minister, my question is, if we would all prefer an independent investigation, why has the Australian government not asked Israel to undertake or commit to an independent investigation?
The Minister has made it very clear that we've asked for an urgent, swift investigation and also a transparent one. We will continue to press that.
Sure. But Dr Webster, that's different to an independent investigation. So I'm just interested, if we want an independent investigation, you don't get what you don't ask for. So why haven't we asked for an independent investigation?
I think we need to allow Israel some time, a reasonable amount of time, to make good on our request that they do a transparent investigation, Senator.
Okay. And so beyond diplomatic representations, has Australia imposed or considered, in response to the alleged mistreatment of Australians, any advice on further targeted sanctions?
We've already sanctioned Minister Ben-Gvir, who was the minister who was shown in that in the video, behaving utterly inappropriately. We have earlier this week issued additional sanctions. They are in relation to settlements in the West Bank, and they go to our principled position, which is settlements are not consistent with international law and are not consistent with and are an obstacle to two-state solution. and that we with other countries, I think the EU and France have already imposed those sanctions. New Zealand did with us. So there's coordination there.
Thank you, Minister. And I commend the government on that. I'm interested, after this incident, are any further sanctions being considered against other individuals relating to this incident?
Senator, we don't comment on future sanctions.
Are you...
That's not a transparency point, Senator. You don't telegraph. They have effect. They have more effect when they're not telegraphed, and because a lot of there's a normative point about sanctions, but there's also a practical point about what they impose, and so you don't want to give entities or individuals time to respond. So if you look at every government around the world, including Australia, whether it's the Russian or Iranian sanctions or these individual sanctions of the 2 Israeli ministers or the West Bank settlements, we haven't telegraphed them. But I would make the point again, Ben-Gvir has already been sanctioned in relation to behaviour towards Palestinians.
Uh-huh. Thank you, Minister. And then just finally, I can see my time's almost up here. Yesterday it was reported that there had been additional damage to the Gaza War Cemetery, and DVA said that they and the Commonwealth War Graves Commission can't be certain of the extent of further damage. To the last time we discussed this at estimates, but we know that it builds on damage to the Australian Quarter. What representations have you or the department made to the Israeli government about the cemetery since estimates in February?
Senator Ralph King, First Assistant Secretary, Middle East and Africa Division. There's 2 parts of this question. Can I come to the most recent first? We became aware of those latest allegations through testimony by DVA, which you
just
heard.
Yesterday.
That's when we heard
they hadn't
of the most recent ones. No, because the Commonwealth War Graves Commission handles maintenance of war graves, and DVA, Department of Veterans Affairs, is our channel to them. We became aware of them through that.
Sure.
We've subsequently, even though, as our colleagues in DVA told you, they are the channel to the War Graves Commission, we sought some further information on that.
Dr. King, just on that, did you ask them why they haven't let you know? This seems like something that they should probably let you know about.
I'll have to check that, but I became aware of this yesterday through the testimony and sought through them information on these latest reported attacks. The advice from the CWC is that they are unable to determine the extent of the damage and not yet able to determine if any burials have been disturbed. And as with previous issues highlighted, a full assessment will need to take place as and when it is safe to do so. Sure. And you can imagine, Senator, it's very unsafe to do so at present. You asked your first question about how many representations were made this year.
Since February.
I believe they were in the representations made in February. 2 sets were made, were in respect of incidents last year.
Sure. No, Dr. King, I fully accept if DVA haven't let you know about this, you can't really act on it.
No, as a matter of fact, Senator, I did speak to the Israeli embassy yesterday to draw their attention to our broad concern about attacks on these highly symbolic facilities, and they've undertaken to seek clarification. We also have sought clarification from the CWC, and as I just read to you, they're uncertain. They believe in the first instance this may have been damage to the Canadian UN plot and in the Indian section. That'll be confirmed. We did get an answer, which has been in the public media, to our representations on earlier incidents. Yes. And as you may have read, that the Israeli government maintains that the location was used for attacks by Hamas on their forces and they had to respond.
Well, Dr. King, thank you for your work on this and thank you for raising. I know this is of great concern to many veterans and the broader Australian community.
Yes,
so
and as I think the Minister said on the last occasion of estimates, it's something we take very seriously. We know how important this is.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks for that. I'll hand over to Senator Shoebridge. I just do need to flag that Senator Patterson needs to head off by 1 o'clock, so I'll have to hand the call over to him, and I'll come back to others after the lunch break. But Senator Shoebridge.
I understand. I'll be brief, and then
Okay.
I'll hand green time over to Senator Faruqi. Minister, thank you for the correspondence in response to representations I made to you regarding the global Samud Flotilla, and I did receive that a little bit before 10:30 this morning.
Look, I was away for. I'm conscious that I would have liked to get it.
Minister,
get it to you sooner.
I'm thanking you.
I thought we
thanking
should
you
try
for
and get it to you before estimates.
Thank you. And I note that correspondence includes your statement that while Australian consular officers did all they could to provide consular assistance to Australian participants in Israel, including travelling to Ketziot prison twice and attending the airport where the participants were deported, Israel refused consular to provide access, but I think it means Israel refused to provide consular access.
Correct.
Yep. Minister, have you or any of your senior team spoken with the consular officials who are at the airport? And I'll ask you this because I've spoken with members who were on the Samud Flotilla, and they describe calling out for help when they saw the consular officials, calling for help, begging for help, and then the Israeli authorities, in sight of the consular officials, dragging the Australians away and then actually beating them, and then them crying out for help and being beaten at that moment when the consular officials were just across the way at the airport. Have you spoken with the consular officials about that instance?
Senator, I have spoken to consular officials about the events in Israel, including at the airport. From what I understand, there was a screen that was erected and the consular officials did not have line of sight to what was occurring behind that screen. And we have expressed our concern a number of times to the Israeli authorities that we did not have any consular access in Israel.
Did they hear the cries for help from the Australians, and did they hear the sound of the beatings that were happening? Have they reported that to you?
So from what I understand, it was a very noisy environment, a very crowded environment, and they did hear screams. As I noted, they did not have line of sight to what was occurring. There was a screen that prevented them from seeing what was happening beyond the barrier.
Apart from the screams, did they hear the cries for help from the Australians? Did they hear that? Did they report hearing that to you?
Senator, I'm not aware of them hearing the cries of Australians. I was not provided that detail.
Again, I've spoken with members of the Samud Flotilla, and in fact 3 of them are in the public gallery today, and they are deeply concerned by a statement, Minister, that DFAT gave to SBS on their release to Turkey. And it's reported under a headline, Deported Australians on Gaza-bound flotilla allege abuse while detained by Israel. And SBS says, a spokesperson for the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade said 11 Australians were met in Turkey by Australian consular officials. We are pleased that the Australians involved in the global flotilla have now been released by Israel. No Australians required immediate medical attention beyond the provision of basic first aid supplies. Access to medical treatment remains available. Now, Minister, you have, I hope you're now aware of the appalling treatment that Australians received. Beatings, incredible violence, sexual assaults. How on earth is it that DFAT put out that statement minimising the trauma and violence visited upon Australian citizens, seemingly, it looks, relying on statements from the Israeli state over the direct pleas of help and statements from Australians?
I don't accept. I mean, there are a range of propositions and accusations you just made. I don't accept them. What I do accept is, or what I do believe, is that there have been, people have been mistreated, and that is unacceptable. And I outlined, I think before you came in, the responses we have engaged in, but I would ask in the specific about, I think it was an SBS article, is that the report?
It was.
I'll ask the department to respond to that.
Minister.
Well, can I let... I'm allowed,
by all means.
Senator, let me just allow the department to
I'm happy
respond.
to give you a copy of the article if you'd like.
Senator, I'm asking the department to respond because you said yourself in your question it was a defat statement. So, thank you. They have the right to respond.
So, Senator, in relation to that statement, and it was part of a broader statement, and I think it's important to take it in context. The response followed fairly well-established process. We have where there is an incident that has occurred overseas, and there's a high level of public interest in whether any Australians have been seriously injured or might have died in that incident. At the time, we were responding to many media questions that reflected quite grave concerns about the welfare of these individuals, and without identifying individuals, I would say that factual information was provided confirming that on arrival in Turkey, the individuals had not indicated they required immediate medical attention beyond basic first aid. The media response then went on to say that Australia has raised serious concerns with Israeli authorities about the alleged treatment of detainees and delays in providing consular access. So there was certainly no intent to minimise any of those allegations that had been made.
Well, Minister, I'll just repeat what a DFAT official said to SBS.
Senator,
no Australians required
answer.
immediate medical attention beyond the provision of basic first aid supplies. Access to medical treatment remains available. These Australian citizens were part of a series of people who were the subject of taser use, beatings, denial of food, denial of water, held in prone positions and sexual assault. And when their government makes a statement, when they're finally released, that no Australians required immediate medical attention, minimising the appalling treatment they had.
Senator, please.
I've got to tell you, it was insulting to the experience. And on what possible basis did you make that statement?
I didn't make
that
statement. And the official, I am not. The official has responded to the assertions. Okay. Now, including some of the assertions you made about intent, which is not accurate. So, I understand the distress, I understand the anger, but can you please, instead of reading out your next prepared statement, have regard to what the official has just... Well, Senator, it's true. Can you please have regard, even if you don't agree with what the official has said to you?
I have.
Committee. Well, you
Minister.
haven't, because you're continuing to assert something which he has made clear is not the case.
Minister...
So you can't keep doing that.
Minister, Julie Lamont, Gemma O'Toole and Niamh O'Connor are present in the public gallery. They and other Samud participants would seek to be able to express to you directly the appalling treatment that they've received, to make clear their deep concerns about these statements, and would seek to do that with you directly. I believe they're entitled to an apology, but they are at least entitled to an audience. Will you meet with them?
Well, Senator,
and will you discuss it
Senator,
with them?
I don't respond to requests that are made in a political forum like this from a political party like yours. I'll respond directly to the people concerned.
Well, they're right there.
Well, Senator, I will respond directly to them, not through you. I'm advised until today, and I understand they've issued you've issued a press release with them, which is one of the ways you can ask to meet, that I have not had a direct request to my office to meet with me. And I will consider that appropriately, rather than through this forum and through a media press statement.
Chair,
Okay?
I'll hand over to my colleague.
And the point I would make is, as I said at the outset, I think the behaviour by Israel, firstly the really unconscionable behaviour from Ben-Gvir, who we previously sanctioned for his actions towards Palestinians, the failure to provide consular access, the reports of mistreatment are unacceptable. And we've made that clear to Israel. And if people approach me, not through a Green senator engaging in an estimates question or a press statement, but directly, I'll certainly consider that, as I always do. Thank you.
Yeah, Minister, I have questions about the horrific treatment of the 11 brave Australian humanitarians aboard the Global Samud Flotilla who were kidnapped.
Sorry, we've done this.
Sorry, I want to ask some more questions.
But your colleague has asked all these questions.
Sorry, you are here to answer our questions, Minister. I want to ask some more questions.
No, please don't shout at me. All I'm saying for the committee is that Senator Shoebridge has already gone through this in detail.
I want some more questions.
So you want to do it too?
I want to ask some more questions.
Well, I'm just understanding with the Greens Party. I'm happy for us to redo it, but we have just spent, I don't know, was it 20 minutes, Senator Shoebridge, on this? So I'm just wondering why we're getting the same questions from another Greens senator. I think it was quite a long time, actually, but that's fine. If you want to, we'll do it again.
We act collectively.
Well, including both. Okay, that's fine.
Correct.
We work together, Minister. So I do want to ask you questions about the horrific treatment. And I want to actually lay on the table, because there was a lot of hesitation in actually naming what the treatment was. So one of these flotilla participants, Juliette Lamont, has said she was sexually assaulted and beaten, cable-tied, and had so much water thrown in her face that at one point she thought she was going to drown. She says they wrenched my trousers and underwear down, and I was raped by one of the soldiers. My daughter was syringed with an unknown substance. Other people had guns inserted inside them. Niamh O'Connor, another one of these brave humanitarians, has said she was abused, physically beaten, and sexually humiliated. She says, I had my hands pinned behind my back while being repeatedly kneed in the spine, kneed in the thighs. And Violet Coco has told us that she was held at gunpoint, stripped of her clothes, and pushed into a shipping container where she was beaten, kicked, and sexually assaulted before being thrown into a prison yard. Minister, do you believe these women?
Well, my principal position is to always believe women when allegations of sexual assault are made.
So you believe these women?
Hang on, please don't interrupt, Senator. I have an answer. I also want to say publicly, now you've chosen to disclose that information publicly. I assume that is something you have consent for.
This is public information,
Senator,
which you
can I finish?
Obviously haven't seen.
Senator, yes, it's one thing for it to be reported. It is another thing to use it in a Senate estimates in this way. So I'm assuming you have consent for that. Now, if I can respond to those allegations are terrible. They are horrific. And the treatment is unacceptable. And I express my empathy to those women to whom that was done. As I outlined to your colleague, Senator Shoebridge, we have made our representations to Israel at Foreign Minister level and at diplomat level in relation both to treatment and in relation to Israel's refusal to grant consular access in accordance with its international obligations. And I went through with your colleague and also with, I think, Senator Pocock, the nature of our representations. In relation to, I feel it's obviously very distressing. I feel a difficulty in responding to specific private details in a public forum like this. And I think it's not the way in which I would like the discussion of these awful events to be conducted.
Minister, I asked a straightforward question. Do you believe these women? You haven't given me an answer to that.
That's not true. Please don't say that. That's not true. Please don't say that.
And what you have done is asked Israel,
Senator Faruqi, please don't.
the criminals to investigate their own crimes. This is what you are doing.
No,
so don't try and turn the tables on me.
Excuse me.
I'm
as
used
a feminist,
to your tactics. I'm sorry. This is ludicrous.
Order.
This is ludicrous.
Senator
You are the
Faruqi.
Minister of Foreign Affairs. You need to give
Senators,
straight answers.
Enough.
You need to...
It's lunchtime or we're breaking.
I have something.
You want to finish?
I'm not going to let that stand.
Yeah, well,
I said,
excuse
me, I have said to you very clearly, and I think anyone...
That you believe these women? Yes.
Excuse me.
Senator Faruqi.
I said very clearly, including, and I think if you look at my career, my view is that you should believe, and I believe, women who come forward with these assertions.
But then you shouldn't let the perpetrators of these heinous crimes investigate themselves.
That is, and please do not make assertions that are false about what I have said and what I do and what I believe. And I know you always
have done nothing to support these women or others who have been
we're suspending for lunch.